Today, we have a generation of people, actually multiple generations of people, whoever's alive, that don't want to figure out things for themselves. We've become lazy, basically. We've become lazy to look at things with much more scrutiny, meaning having the examining eyes to look at patterns instead of what is being fed. We want to be spoon-fed everything, not investigate, not examine. We even love to get ready-made ideas, what it is that we're supposed to like, what it is that we're supposed to be convinced of. It's no different than just, like thinking about fast food, microwave food, quick and easy. This is so dangerous. So dangerous. People are not looking at patterns. And patterns tell us everything. Everything is made of patterns. You go and talk to any person who's ever involved, is in any capacity involved with a type of investigation. You don't have to be a criminal investigator, but hey, that would put you right there at the top of people who must look at patterns. But that's a quality that any thinking entity, any thinking human being, let's say, is supposed to be using. Especially, I was going to say educated people, but no, I have to pause and correct myself before even saying it. Because even if you're a complete illiterate person, you do some investigation. You have to. You're looking at patterns. If you're a farmer who's uneducated, some parts of the world, you're still looking at the weather patterns. How is the rain coming? Is there rain? Is the river changing its path? Is there enough sediments coming down with the runoff? Patterns. When I was a child, I used to watch movies, suspense movies, dramas, crime mysteries, things like that, to improve my English, for example, but also to see how actors would be able to capture a role. But sooner or later, I would be pulled into the story because of the great acting, let's say, and I would start to also, just like everyone else, look for who's done it. What's going on behind, like, what is the writer or director, what are they hiding? Also with books, mystery novels and things, I would avoid looking at the last few pages, resist the temptation, and instead, from the very first pages, I would look for some signs. So I would try to not be pulled into the other paraphernalia, the bells and whistles of things that deflect, the things that come in and subterfuge something else that's going on. Today's human being, and I don't care if you're an 80-year-old university professor or 70 or 60-year-old very experienced CEO, or a grandmother or a grandfather or whatever, highly educated with a bunch of PhDs or whatever, means nothing if you happen to fall into the category of the majority of the population of this planet in wanting your own ideas to be catered to you, delivered at your door, just like Amazon, just like Uber Eats or something, coming to your door, knocking, there you go. No need for any transactions, in fact. Everything is done, including the tip. This is a sad, sad, sad case for human beings, for our planet. A major disappointment for evolution. We've become dumb as a population where people are not even thinking to probe, to investigate. In fact, if you're investigating something, looking at something with a little bit more scrutiny, shall we say, all of a sudden, that is ringing a few bells in your head, and it's pretty vacuous, by the way. That's why it has a nice echo. You can hear the bells very well because there's nothing else much going on in there. Because of what you're being fed by the news, by this, by, Netflix, the shows, and all these crazy, crazy novel things that are coming out, not necessarily good. These new ideologies, these new identifications, these new somethings that do nothing other than deplete us of our humanity. Under the guise of doing something noble, standing up for something, finally coming out of the ashes and making a claim, making a stand, right? Getting that recognition. It's all smoke. It's all smoke and mirrors, as they say in the field of magicians on stage, entertainers. It's all smoke and mirrors. But how can you know that it is that? If you happen to be a person who's now, unfortunately, standing away from the crowd. You're standing on the sidelines because you are not going by the position of yelling, even if it's yelling incoherently, but you have other yellers next to you, people who are similarly yelling incoherent sounds. Suddenly, those sounds become, because they're louder than yours, and because they are gathering more and more mass, they become the truth, quote unquote. The truth, which is anything but the truth. But how can we know that? If we come out of this dumb state of affairs. And dumb doesn't mean that you have less of an education, or in fact, I'm now more doubtful of people going to universities because this is where the poison of ignorance is being fueled to dumb down our intellect, to dumb down our critical thinking. That's a obsolete thing I see every single day when I hear what people are saying. Educated people. People who have an influence over millions of people. Saying things. And what people are being corralled into thinking. And everybody's going down like a group of cows going down being corralled into this fenced, narrow alleyway that's getting narrower and narrower and narrower, bottlenecking. Meanwhile, there's a few cows turning around and saying, "Excuse me, where are we going?" The majority of the other cows are going to turn to this guy and say, "Hey, stop asking questions, just go. Look at everyone else going. Why do you have to be so different?" You must be one of them. Whatever that means. Whatever that means. But guess what? That majority today is going down a road that is strewn, weaved, terraced, and completely decorated. All the way down to the slaughterhouse, which everyone else is going. And that slaughterhouse is a metaphor I'm using for unprecedented levels of ignorance and everything else that comes from that. That come from that, plural. I'm not trying to be mystical or anything like that. No, it's just people are not using their heads. They're not using their brains. Integrity is out the door. People are not realizing that you cannot have somebody else telling you what to believe. You cannot have somebody else giving you cookie cutter answers. You must do your own investigation. You must do your own digging. Look for patterns. Use your head. Use your brain. And no, going ahead and talking with other people who speak like you does not make you have the voice of truth. Ever. It never did. It never will. But people are just gathering more and more momentum and saying, see, so-and-so is thinking like that. Well, remember those cows? Rushing their way in droves, going into the slaughterhouse. That's what these people are doing. And they're calling themselves very sophisticated, very modern, very in with the program. At this time period, I'm kind of sad to call myself a human being, a member of this species on this planet. It's really embarrassing. I'm ashamed to look at a cow, at a dog, at a mouse, at a cockroach. Really, I'm ashamed. They have integrity. At least the cockroach is doing its best to be a cockroach. I can't say that about a human being. How can anyone be okay with being given ideas or convictions without doing their due diligence in looking it up? And that comes from a level of cowardice, a lack of backbone, in saying, excuse me, I don't agree with this. Instead, people are just tired because there's this push to own, to go and do this, have fun, and to be accepted. That's the big one. Because nobody wants to be alone. Ultimately, if you really scratch the surface, really go deep, scratch it until you get to the bottom, that's where you find the fear of aloneness, loneliness. Fear of loneliness. Nobody wants to be that single old person left without anybody to take care of, or to give them a call, or to come and say, hello, you're important to me, I miss you. Nobody wants to be that. So, what do? The quickest way of demonstrating that you're a coward is to just blindly agree. Sure, I like it, yes. Sure, I'm okay with that, absolutely, yes. Even if you're not. And that, because it's a tendency of repetition that's there, because you don't want to be left out, like going to a party, going to a social gathering. People want to be agreeable. Otherwise, they're going to be left out of the crowd, which means you're out of the cave. That fear of being left out of the cave, which means the saber-tooth, the wolf, the bear, is going to come and chew you into pieces. That fear is still there. That's why I say it's an embarrassment for these people to call themselves evolved human beings. You stop using your ability to reason, to explore, to scrutinize, to examine things that are around you. You stop doing that and instead go ahead and jump into the bandwagon where everybody's going. Hey, where are you going? Oh, we're going down this road. Everybody's going there. Where's that guy going? Well, he's an idiot. Why? Well, we think he's an idiot. Okay, let me continue with you guys then. I don't want to be that idiot. And we have different titles. Today I see families even having issues with themselves. Siblings against siblings. Parents with their children. Children with their parents. And to avoid confrontation, to avoid having any kind of a bitter interaction, many people don't even want to talk about now the big elephant in the room. So we just walk tippy-toe around it. Well, it's just going to get worse if this continues, where people have handed over their integrity of thinking, the very thing that makes you and I different than a cockroach. No, it's not your master's degree, your PhD, your bachelor degree, or how well you walk on two legs. Nope. Or how many languages you speak. It really doesn't matter. How many children you have. How many houses you own. How much money you make. None of that matters. But thinking has become a passé thing for these people. It's outdated, it's overrated, it's not as important as gaining agreement from the others in society. And that's why I say they lack a backbone. Individuals who made history were not afraid to walk alone. And this, fortunately, will never change. Out of all this chaos, 7.8, close to 8 billion people now on this planet, majority of them are zombies. They walk, talk, speak, smile, laugh, cry, do all those things. But when it comes to the most important things, forget it. They will bite the bait. The bait that is thrown at them with the mass media, the news agencies, whatever they want you to think, whatever they want you to believe, you will do it. Like a good boy. Because you buy the ready-made food, the microwave food. And that's what we have today. Which makes it more challenging. And this is in every field. Every field I'm noticing. This has been going on in the field of art for over a few hundred years now. A couple of hundred years. After the Baroque period, everything went south. You had a few good artists here and there, but then art became, it's open for interpretation. Go and say that to Michelangelo's David or his Moses. Just see. We've trivialized art. How can art be open to interpretation? It is what you think it is. That's another spineless way of describing it. And you have multi-billion-dollar industry out of that. Nonsense. splashes here and there, and that's selling for a few $100 million. It's by the way, it's called art, apparently. And then you jump forward into the academic world, and that's what you see also. And that's what they can do. They infiltrate into these cultural lighthouses that make a civilization. And you break its own back by infusing corrupt, decrepit ways of thinking. And you demolish society. We start to de-evolve, go backwards. And that's what we see today. That's what we see today. You have people who are just like, you give them a few cookies and they go. Give them a few lollipops and they go. Give them a few new things, they go. Give them a holiday. Shorten their weekdays, a work week. They'll love you. And forget about the other damages, catastrophes that are being done. Give them a new topic. And usually it's involving some level of fear. You create fear, you grab hold of the population. That's what they discovered in Nuremberg trials. When Goering said that, Hitler's, I think it was his Luftwaffe's top commander, one of Hitler's henchmen, top, who was caught. And these naive sounding attorneys, magistrates, whatever, judges, were asking Goering, how were you able to subdue the will of the German people? How were you able to trick them? And he said, you guys get it wrong. You don't get it, it seems. You give somebody, you give a group, it doesn't matter if it's German, this, that, it doesn't matter. Any group of people, he says. The trick is giving them something to be afraid of, something to fear. And the moment you do, you got them. That's it. They will do anything. And that's what we've been doing for decades, if not 100 years already. You terrorize a group of people and that's it. You'll do what you want. They will do, no questions asked, whatever it is that you want to do, them to do. And this is sad. I saw this as a child growing up in Lebanon. My dad was a big fan of the news, the nightly news that used to come up at 8 p.m. He would be so much into it. So much. Meanwhile, the bombs are falling around us. I was injured. I spent a whole month in the ICU. Okay. Our lives were destroyed. But he was still buying the story that was going. And Lebanon is are you kidding me? It's such a small country. Yeah, it used to be a very, very known, they used to call it the Paris of the Middle East or something like that, years ago in the 70s, early 70s, until the war began in 75. Well, I was a baby then. And then the war kept on going for many, many years. And I remember one scene as my dad was watching, and there were these all government officials, all these militia heads that were going head to head. They were yelling and screaming at each other. You did this, we're going to come after you. We want justice. The other group says the same thing. They're going neck to neck. On camera, separately. Until there was one camera guy who had his camera still running. And he had pointed the camera at the main hall of where the government officials they were trying to have a meeting or something. These same two, there were many groups, but these two main militia heads who had been responsible each for the killing, torturing of thousands of innocent lives, At that moment, when the cameras were not supposed to be running, at that moment, for some reason, somebody slipped and opened the doors, the two doors into this large hall. And guess who was laughing and hugging each other as if they knew each other forever? They were the best of buddies. Those same two heads of militias. Between them, they had killed hundreds of thousands of people for decades, for at least a decade. That completely shattered my image of what's really going on. And this is, again, a very, very minutiae of a country. But that was simply a reflection of what's happening in the big leagues for over a century. So I pity those people who look at the news, big news agencies, and think that that's what is really going on. Because these people are pathetically refusing to apply their critical thinking abilities to look at patterns. You had all these people, big, whether religious or not, getting up and saying, or government heads, kings and queens, oh, the war must stop, oh, has to stop, people are dying. And then you look at who benefits. A very simple question. When I was about 16 or 17, I asked this question: who benefits from war? Who benefits from war? Well, the people who are actually selling the weapons, right? People who are selling the weapons. Okay, who's selling the weapons? The same people whose heads of state are getting on TV and saying, oh, you must come together, there must be peace, enough of this war and bloodshed of innocent lives. Do you see the pattern? There's so much money involved. So it's foolish to think that given the status quo, that there will be peace through these means. Now, I am going out of my way to point out the ludicrous state of affairs. Of what? Of the outside world. This is an answer to sometimes questions I get from students like, oh, we have to go, Bhante, we have to go outside and fix the world and justice and this and that. This is probably the most in-depth way that I've ever gone into this, explaining this, hopefully once and for all, because it's really useless. It's really useless to go outside into the world to fix it first, when you're letting go of the work that needs to be done with you inside, in your mind. That is the thing that you can control. I'm sorry, if you're born in this body, on this planet right now, you are subject to all of that which I described. Unless you have a method or a time machine or something to go off-world and live outside of these nations' scope of influence. The media's influence and everything else, the debacle that's going on. Otherwise, along with the other 8 billion people, you do your best, you live your life, follow the rules as you're expected, but don't lose your integrity. Don't lose your spine. Say what needs to be said at the right moment. But don't sell yourself out. Don't expect cookie-cutter, ready-made ideas to be delivered at your doorstep for you to just like panting to receive like a dog, waiting. I'll take whatever comes my way from this agency, from that organization. Yeah, because if they're not correct, then they shouldn't be on the major media. How stupid. Darwin is tossing and turning in his grave. But, again, we're not here to change the outside world, because these things have been going on and they're not in your control. Face it. So what do? You work on yourself. Because all these people, all these entities behind these influences, behind all these negative movements that are dragging humanity down into the mud, into the trash, actually. Mud can be useful, but garbage, plastic garbage of whatever we're facing, they too have a lifespan, thankfully. They're going to be dead, just like you and I. But they have to answer for their actions, just like you and I. And if their actions continue being this way, unwholesome, guess what? The consequences for that are incredibly, incredibly bad, evil, just like their actions are on this planet while they're alive. So, by you choosing a wholesome path, you're definitely on the right track, because at least you won't be facing as bad or evil consequences as they will. They will. But that's not our business. You work on your own quality of your mind, please. Don't be so pulled into the story about the world and how I could change it, or how unfair, are people blind. That's why I wanted to, address these once and for all. Okay?